guest on our show today who I was introduced to through a mutual friend, and I am very excited to have her here today. She is the author of Ransomed Heart, and her name is Gabrielle Rehmeyer, and we'll call her Gabby because she told us that we could, and I appreciate that. So she gave us permission to call her Gabby. So when we come back from this quick break, we're actually going to sit and we're going to talk with her this week. She's an author, she's a blogger, she's a musician, she's a poet, and she's going to candidly speak to us about the transformative love of Jesus Christ and the impact that the love of Christ had on her life, and how she came to understand her true identity through Jesus Christ. So this is going to be a very good couple of segments, and I encourage you to stay tuned and stay locked to WXSL Street Legal Radio. That's www.streetlegalradio.com. You can also listen to us on www.theafterchurchshow.com. We're streaming live on Periscope under The After Church Show, and also on Ustream under Street Legal Radio. So stay tuned, stay locked. When we come back, we'll have an interview with Gabby. Welcome back to the After Church Show with Greg and friends. I'm your host and producer, GB. In the studio today with Massey, and big shout out to our engineer, Sade, who's also holding it down for us as well. But as promised, right before the break, we have now brought into the studio Gabrielle Rehmeyer. And I'm happy to have her. We're going to call you Gabby from now on. That was your official name. So we're happy to have her in the studio with us today. She, again, is an author of the book Ransomed Heart. And the entire title is Ransomed Heart, Coming Out of Homosexuality and Into the Father's Arms. So this is a unique opportunity that we've had to meet her and to sit with her and discuss God's transformative love for her life. So I want to also just publicly acknowledge and thank Stacy Gay for introducing us. So thank you, Stacy, for making the introduction. But she introduced you and I, and now we're going to be lifelong friends. I'm claiming that. But welcome to the show. Welcome to the studio today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. A little nervous. I've never done this before, but I'm excited.
No need. We're you know what? This is it. Just imagine yourself sitting on a deck talking with some friends. That's what this show's all about.
Minus the mics.
Minus the mics. Yeah. It's just a bunch of people listening to us. That's all. So, so I did my research, and I now know a lot about who you are, and I'm very impressed with your testimony and everything that you've allowed God to do through your life to use you. So I want to ensure that our listening audience has the same opportunity to know and understand who you are and appreciate what God has done in your life. So could you just, we've already introduced you, but could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background and everything, just so everybody knows exactly who you are?
Sure. Just tell the story or just a little brief?
You know what? Wherever you want to go. If you want, you go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm Gabby, and I have been in Baltimore now for 5 years.
Okay.
I moved here from Swaziland in southern Africa. My parents are missionaries there, so started off in Louisiana and then moved to Swaziland when I was 14. My parents felt called to go on the mission field, so we sold everything and just up and moved, and my parents still live there. So I spent my teenage years up until I was 20 in Swaziland.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in a Christian home. My whole life I was in church, probably more than the usual church-going person. We had camp meeting, every day of the week there was always something going on. And my parents were very involved in street ministry, so I was always doing something with them, and went to a Christian school. So my life was church and soccer, and usually in the opposite order.
Soccer than church.
So I was very involved, but also very obsessed with soccer. Very insecure about who I was, just on many levels. So soccer was kind of that thing for me that fed that insecurity, and it was what I was good at. And I wanted to be better, and I wanted to prove that I could, be the best at something. And
you still play?
I haven't in a while. Had an opportunity to play a few weeks ago at work event just for fun, and I was like, this is awesome.
You still got it?
I got a few blisters, and I might have pulled a muscle, but it was worth it. So when we moved to Swaziland, I was still very much so involved in ministry. I led a Bible study at school, went to an international school that wasn't Christian, and it was the first time I was introduced to all different religions, all different people from all over the world, and I loved it. And I started playing soccer there on the women's team, the women's national team, and got involved and started to slowly not really be able to listen to, or maybe not even ask for his opinion or his direction in my life. I got a little caught up in a lot of different things, and before you know it, I was introduced to a lifestyle I never had really been exposed to before or even thought about, and I kind of let a whole bunch of things take the place of God in my life, and that's where everything started to shift. Really.
Okay. So when you and this is just for our listening audience, we are going to be dealing with the topic of human sexuality today specifically. So if you have younger children, and if it's your choice not to have them in the room at the moment, that is your choice. But it's not going to be anything graphic, anything like that. But we are going to be dealing with the topic of human sexuality, just so you're aware. So when did you just moving right into when did you realize that there was a same-sex attraction that was developing in you? When did you come to that understanding that that's what it was, and maybe you looked at it and said, well, this is what it is? How old were you? Do you know?
I remember times when I was younger, when I would have friends and I would have crushes, but I never really even knew what it was about. So I would ignore it and I wasn't really interested in any of it. So I was so caught up in soccer and church and everything, I never had time to think past that. But when I started to really feel like I had feelings for other women was I was playing soccer in Swaziland, and I was on a team with a bunch of ladies. They were a lot older than me, and some were like big sisters, and then others started showing me attention that I never got before. And I actually I kept journals from the time I was 10 up until now, but my mom brought me all my journals back last year when I graduated from undergrad, and I got to read through them, and in one of my journals I wrote down a message that I had gotten from somebody, and I was like, God, I made a new friend, but I've never had a friend tell me this before. I'm not sure what it means, but maybe that's just how things are done here. And at first it started as having really close friends, and then they became very protective over me, and then before you knew it, I started having feelings, and or feelings were expressed towards me, and they started being reciprocated, and I didn't know what was happening, where they were coming from, or who I could even talk to. But I also liked the attention, so I kind of entertained it rather than shut it down and really go to someone and be like, hey, I don't know what's going on. And then at school, it was very much so encouraged, and so before you know it, I was talking to and dating other women. At school, I started talking to people and on my soccer team, and I was at this point in leadership at church, and one of the other ladies at church who was also in leadership started talking to her as well, and one of my youth pastors found out and told the main pastor, who told my parents, and that's how it all kind of came to light.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't really a choice for you to tell. It just kind of came about. So can I ask you, how did you feel though? Like, and what I mean by that is, how did you feel initially when you realized that this is what your preference was at the time, and also how did you feel? Because we if we're going to be frank, we know that church can be a bit judgmental, and we know that as it relates to certain things, the church seems to take a harsher and more stern stance, which we realize if you really love the Lord, and if you're truly a believer in the ways of Christ, you know that that's wrong, because there's no sin worse than another. When you realize that this is what was going on in you, and then how did you feel understanding that the tenets of Christianity and our belief system, how did that make you feel as well?
So I was terrified, and like I said, I didn't know who to talk to or where I could bring it. So instead of trying to get help, I tried to just hide, and I actually had a few boyfriends that I really were just to keep, sadly, just to keep my parents' suspicion at bay, because I wanted to hide it. And as long as I thought if I had someone that they thought was my boyfriend, that it would kind of make them not really worried, because they had some suspicions, but I was very torn because I couldn't understand why I was feeling a certain way, but I knew what God said, and I was like, God, I never asked for this. Where is this coming from? Like, I don't know what to do with it. Like, it was like, the more I tried to fight it in my own strength, the more I wanted it, and the more I felt like I was failing, not only myself, but everyone. Like, when it came to light at church, they sent me, and you're right, the church can be very judgmental towards many different things, and this is one that I think the church I went to in Swaziland, they handled it the best way they knew how. Of course, to me at that time, anyone who said anything to me, even in a loving manner, I thought they were being hateful and closed-minded and judgmental, and I was defensive and probably cussed a few people out. I apologize. But
oh, no need to apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it.
That's actually part of the problem, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad that you came here to be so candid with us, because that is what we do as Christians. Sometimes we will pounce on somebody with both hands and both feet if we feel like what they're doing is wrong, and we don't have a right to tear down, demoralize, and condemn people. We do hold things against the light of Christ, and then we move in that direction. But I think that the way that we handle certain things is totally incorrect, and we wind up ostracizing people and pushing them away, as opposed to having a door open, a door of love open, where they can come in and feel like, regardless of what I may feel at this time, who I am, what I believe, what I like, etc., that because of the light of Christ, I will be accepted. And I think we fail at that. So, was that kind of the feeling that you had with your church at the time?
It was. I don't think they knew what to do with me.
Okay.
I went to a few counseling sessions with the pastor, but it was more, he would just have me talk and what's going on and try to explain this to me, and we talked, but I felt like he didn't understand. No one understood me, so they would send me to then a lady in the church or other missionaries who would talk to me, who I'm now very thankful for, because they spoke truth, that though then I wasn't ready to hear any of it, and I cut everyone off. It was messages and seeds that were planted for later on that kind of came to my remembrance at the most random places and times. But in that time, I think that they handled it the best they knew how. They asked me to step down from leadership. Because at that time, I started also going out a lot and drinking. I was in drinking age is a lot younger, and also they don't really check ID anyways when you go to the store. So I was just.
Was it like 18 or something? 16?
18, but I was drinking at 16 very heavily already, and just I'd come to church hungover, and while I was still trying to hide it, I'd try to worship, and I distinctly remember one Sunday coming in there feeling completely torn and a headache probably, and just out of sorts, but I wanted to keep up this appearance because I wasn't quite sure how these two worlds, very different worlds, I was trying to live, how they could come together, if at all. And I was there in worship and singing, not really meaning any of the words I was saying, and one of the pastors was like, there's someone in here who's singing the words, and your lips are trying to honor, but your heart is very far from me. It'd be better if you stop singing. And I was like,
wow. Wow.
Never opening my mouth again. And after that, I started avoiding church more and more. You couldn't find, don't ask. My parents would invite me, tell me to come. They just stopped asking me, stopped trying to make me go, because I would, even on the times when at first they forced me to go, I'd end up going outside, just hiding, running away, you could not keep me in a church. I was so angry, mostly at God, I think, because I didn't understand why I was struggling. And then there came a point where I was just like, you know what, the more I try to listen to everyone and get help, the more I fail them, so I might as well just give up. This is who I am, accept me, and that way I just stopped disappointing family, especially my parents were just, they did the best they could, but I really hurt them. I was hurting.
Okay. It all makes sense, and I actually completely understand what you're saying. But how did you? What was the? How can I put it? What was the most challenging aspect of it? Because I know that when we have people around us that love us, we have our parents around us, we have our friends that we don't want to disappoint. You have the church that you're trying to save face with, etc. What was the most challenging part for you? Was it your parents? Was that the most challenging part?
Probably. Yeah, my parents and my siblings too. Three younger siblings, and my brother was he didn't really know how to take it. I mean, it wasn't even just that he was like, oh, my sister's gay now, and I'm not going to talk to her. She's sinning. Or it was like my whole countenance, everything about me changed. My attitude, the way I treated people, things I was saying because I was angry and I thought everyone was out to get me. And so I just kind of pushed people away. And my sisters tried to maintain a relationship with me and loved me and would encourage me and preach to me very frequently. My brother just kind of cut me off and didn't talk to me for a very long time. Thank God he's restored that relationship now, but that was really hard because I love my family. I mean, we moved there and it was like moving to Swaziland as a unit. We left everything we knew, and I got so close to my family. They were my everything, and so knowing that I was hurting them the way that I was, and that that distance was just becoming so vast between us was probably the hardest thing at that time.
So all this was occurring while you were still in Swaziland. Oh wow! So your family was that was all you had over there, and yet there was this distance that was being created in this foreign land that you were in. Wow, that had to be challenging.
Oh yeah.
That had to be challenging. We both got questions, but I wanna kind of talk about your moment of revelation when things began to change. So one of my favorite biblical stories is the story of the prodigal son. I love the prodigal son because it's just chock full of juice. There's so much in there. But my favorite verse in that passage is when the Bible says that he came to himself, because that's the moment where he pivots. And even though he had found himself in the midst of a very negative situation that he had created for himself, the Bible says that he came to himself, and that's when everything began to turn around. So what was that moment for you? When was the moment where, despite the choices you made, despite your family's dissatisfaction, and we can talk for days about disappointing family and all that other stuff, because that happens with just about anything. You disappoint your family at some point, sometime, and they'll cut you off for some reason. So we can all associate with that. But talk us through that moment where things shifted for you, and then you felt or heard or whatever it was, the call of Jesus to say, I don't care where you are, come here. What was that? Tell us about that.
So it's funny that you mentioned the prodigal son. So that was actually a few years down the line. It was about 9 years from the beginning to when I came back to Christ. And once I finished school in Swaziland, I was applying for schools in the States. I wanted to go to nursing school, but I specifically wanted to go somewhere where I knew I could get involved in LGBT activism. And I was told DC was a hot spot, so I couldn't find any schools I wanted to go to or that I could apply to and potentially get a scholarship program I was in. So I applied at Baltimore and moved here and got involved immediately at my school's LGBT organization, and became vice president and was all out doing whatever I could to be involved. And meanwhile, in and out of relationships, I was in a long-term relationship when I moved here, and very quickly that one got ruined out, and it was like every few weeks I'd be with someone new, and it'd be a few months I'd be with someone would happen, and then be looking for, I was never by myself. I was never even gave myself time to be alone, because every time I was, that was when the thoughts would come. Are you sure you're what are you doing? Have you gone too far? It was like moments when I was alone. At the end of the day, I could have a super awesome day. I could be in a good relationship. A lot of them weren't so good, but there were some where it'd be, for all intents and purposes, happy. Like I was,
sure.
And even in those moments, and fun activities, and at the end of the day, when I'd be sitting alone by myself, nothing to distract me. From school is a good distractor too. Nursing school kicked my butt, so that can be.
It's hard. I've heard. I won't ever do it. I've heard.
But in those moments when I would sit there, it was like those thoughts would come, and it was more of a fear of what's going to happen. Like if you were to die right now, what's going to happen? And then I'd be like, well, that's just, the Bible's been bashed against my head so many times that I have this fear instilled in me. It's not really God, so I just kind of forget about it or to distract myself. And there would be moments though where I would feel all of a sudden like this heaviness, this like heavy, like almost like a depression. And it would be in those moments where I would feel like God was pursuing me, like He would extend a lifeline, and I'd receive it for a moment, and I'd feel His comfort and His love, and then I'd cut it off because I was like, I can't come out of this. Like, this is my life. It's who I am. And there was one point, because I had tried at one point to start going to church again, but I wanted to go somewhere where they would, tell me that I could do both. And I wrote a paper on the prodigal son from my perspective, and how talking about how I was like the prodigal son, the family of the black sheep, but God, He created me this way, so that's who I was. And like I was at one point, I was even so convinced that I was born that way, that I was telling everyone I was born that way, even though I knew, like, if I had looked at my journals from when I was younger, that wasn't the case. I knew who I was in Christ at a young age, but I so desperately wanted to believe that was the case, because then it made it as if I might as well not try. Like, there's nothing I can do. People are just going to accept it. I need to accept it. The turning point. There were a few times where I would go to services or people would invite me to things, and I would feel God tug on my heart, and I would cry and have that emotional moment, and then go the next day right back 10 times deeper. But the time when it was really real was my senior semester of undergrad, and a few weeks to graduation, and I was in a relationship, had been in a relationship for quite a few months. It was a good relationship, and I just turned 24. And I'd gone out the night before to a casino and had a lot of fun, really drunk. The next morning, woke up with a hangover, but I was, like, that was a good birthday.
Right.
I was in a relationship, that person was with me, and I should have been happy. I had no reason in that moment, to the world standards, to be feeling the way I did, but all of a sudden this heaviness hit me, and I couldn't shake it, and I just sat there and wept. And nothing she could say would, and I didn't understand it, so I got on Skype with my mom, and I started crying, and she started crying, but it was more like she was like smiling while she was crying, and I was like, Mom, why are you like, I'm crying, why are you smiling?
What are you smiling?
It was like she knew, she knew that God was, it almost felt like, and this is how I see it, in the spiritual, like I felt like God opened, like there was like a hole, and He was like telling me in that moment, Gabby, your heart is getting so hard. Like, you have been pushing me away for so long. And it's like that verse in Acts where it talks about Paul's conversion. It's like, it's hard for you to push against. Like, I'm prodding you. It's hard for you to push against the goat. And he was like, I'm not going to stop pursuing you, but at some point your heart is going to get so hard that you're not going to be able to hear me anymore. And I felt like he was saying, if you don't make a change in this moment, it's not good. Like, it's going to be too late. And the thought of that terrified me. And it wasn't at that very moment where I was like, all right, I'm out, I'm a Christian, like everything, like leave. No, that was when I realized like something's got to give. And then the next few weeks and months were a lot of changes, a lot of crying. But that was like the turning point. And it's funny because a lot of times, I was down and out, I was in the lowest of the lows, but this was like a moment where I was actually in a good place. Like, still that tugging inside was too strong.
It's something about that moment. I mean, I know that I can remember the moment where I decided to take my life and my salvation seriously. And I think anybody could probably go back to that moment where you're like, you know what, that was the turning point in my life. Up until that point, I may have been dibbing and dabbling a little bit, but then it became real in this moment. So I certainly understand that. I'm going to take a quick break, and we're going to continue the dialogue, continue the conversation. But if you just tuned in, we're in with Gabrielle Rehmeyer, and she is just enlightening us about her book, her testimony. Her book is Ransomed Heart, and she's sharing with us different parts of her testimony and how God has changed her life. So please do yourself a favor and stay tuned, stay locked to WXSL Street Legal Radio. That's www.streetlegalradio.com. We will be back in just a few moments to continue our conversation with Gabby. After Church Show with Greg and friends. Shows the Medusa GB live in the studio today with our guest for this afternoon, Gabrielle Rehmeyer. She is the author of Ransomed Heart, Coming Out of Homosexuality and Into the Father's Arms. We've been enjoying her company so far. She's been sharing a bit of her testimony and telling us about different parts of her book. So we're grateful to have her in the studio today. We're just going to continue the dialogue with her this afternoon. So Chris, you wanted to ask Gabby a couple questions as well. What questions do you have, buddy?
Sure, I have two questions. My first question is, I find often when you're making a change for your life and trying to better yourself, there's always people who try to, in a sense, hold you back or remind you of your history. Do you ever run into that? And if so, what are things that you do that kind of keep you focused or your relationship with Jesus and as you're living that up?
So when I first started going to church again and getting involved in ministry, those first few months involved a lot of not doing things, not going places, not listening to certain things, just cutting off a lot of things. And sadly, the most painful part of that was ending a lot of friendships and relationships. That just, I knew that if I was going to be serious about making this change and pursuing Christ with everything I had, he was asking me to walk away from a lot of things. And it was hard for me initially because in my mind, I thought the solution to homosexuality for me was heterosexuality. So I just got to be straight now, that's the solution, and I'll be fine. And that is so far from the truth, because really, for me, it was a manifestation of a much deeper rooted hurt and brokenness inside, and it could have manifested in any different way. And God had to show me that in order to get me to a place where we could start to deal with that hurt, the root of rejection and insecurity and pride and all of these things that I struggled with from even when I was younger, before I ever even was involved in homosexuality, it was all of these other things. And in order for him to deal with that, he had to separate me. So he pulls us, he separates us, sets us apart so he can consecrate us and make us more like him. Amen. And in order for that to happen, he requires that we do truly separate ourselves. But we can't ever make it also about, okay, I'm just not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. Like, right. It has to be because we're doing other things. So in not doing all of these things, I'm not just going to now sit in my room, read my Bible, and pray all the time, and that's it, and I'll be fine. So it had to be replaced with, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to love on people. I'm going to get involved in church and evangelism, ministry, and even take that time when God asked me to write the book and just sit and allow him to pour into me. And during that time, I was reminded a lot of my past. And it wasn't even really people that were like, hey, remember when this happened? Or it was more like like this shame and guilt would come back then, because I would remember things that I did and people I hurt and things I said, and especially when I was writing, there would be chapters where I'd have to take a few weeks and just allow God to heal my heart, because I had remembered all this stuff, and I'd have to send emails to people I hadn't talked to in years. I remember, I don't know if you remember me, you probably don't want to talk to me, and I don't know if you have me blocked and won't ever see this message, but I just wanted to apologize for when I did this. And instead of wallowing in it and just allowing that shame to build up in me, I would kind of take steps to, okay, yes, I remember that, and it hurts, and it sucks, and I don't want to remember that. But instead of thinking about it and allowing it to turn into something that, where I end up now going and finding this person and going right back into where I was, I'm going to apologize and let it go. I'm going to pray about it, surrender it to Christ, allow him to heal that place in my heart, and basically take away the devil's authority to then hold it over my head. But there are times still when I remember things, and when I do feel weaker than other times, and it's in those moments where I'm like, all right, where am I? How much time am I spending with Christ? How much fellowship am I getting from the body? Like, where am I? And it's like you have to evaluate in those moments, because the devil will do anything he can to try to get you to remember where you came from.
That is so true. That is so incredibly true. And I mean, you touch on some very key points, and it's really not about. It's more so about how Christ operates in our lives, as opposed to what it is that we do that's outside of his will, because those same things that you just described are some of the exact same thought processes that I have to go through in my own life when I have thoughts of things that I did before that wasn't beneficial, to my walk with Christ. We'll say wasn't beneficial, wasn't beneficial, or that would be damaging to my testimony. It's the exact same process that I had to go through. So that's very key, and good points.
Yeah. My last question is, so I was going through your website and I came upon your music.
Okay, here's the test. No.
And I came upon your music, and one song that is yours specifically spoke to me, and I just kind of wanted to gain like where you were at that time. It's called My Rock, My Shield. And I think that is just so strong, because there are times in your life where you will hit bottom. If you haven't hit it, at some point, unfortunately, you will. And it's so important for us to understand that foundation, that rock. We have to build our life on that. So when I was listening to it, I was trying not to cry, but it was
man
so
up, man.
good.
It's okay.
It was so good.
It's
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, you know, sometimes you just gotta boo-hoo a little bit.
That's right.
That's nothing wrong with it.
Let them snot
Boo-hoo
bubbles.
for Christ.
Snot bubbles.
Let it run all the way down. Yeah, I'm stuffy right now. So, you know, can you remember where you were as you were writing that song and what that song means to you? Because it definitely blessed me.
Yeah, I was trying, as you were talking, I was trying to remember, do I remember how to play it? Because it's like, I started playing guitar when I was young, right? And it was always a matter of every time I would play, it would be worship songs. When I was younger, it would be worship songs, and I would write things. And during the time I was struggling, in the whole 8 years, I didn't really play my guitar much because every time I would pick it up to play it, the only thing I could ever play was a worship song, and I'd get so angry that I couldn't write anything else. So I just put it down, like whatever. So that song was during a time after a few months of having come back to Christ, and I was probably struggling with those same thoughts we were just talking about.
Sure.
And he was just reminding me, you know, I'm your rock, I'm your shield. Like, come to me, let me be your refuge and get you through this time. Like, it's not easy coming out of any kind of lifestyle, sinful lifestyle, or any lifestyle where you don't have Jesus involved, and having to make those changes and kind of he reshapes everything, and it's almost like you lose everything you thought about yourself. Your whole identity gets shaken, but it's because he's trying to show you who he made you to be, and re-establish and recreate and show you who you are in him. And I was feeling very shaky at that time. I'm just like, okay, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. You're asking me a lot, God. You're asking me to write this book. It's scary. People I'm very people please. I don't want to offend or upset. God, I'm scared. And it was during that time when he gave me that song.
I like that song. Awesome. I like your music, but I like that song as well.
Yeah.
You know.
The acoustic guitar is really soothing. That's what it is. So we have Gabby, what we call the ACS question of the week, and it's usually relevant to one or two of the topics that we're discussing that week. So we put our poll question out there this week, and for everybody that participated, left your comments and your feedback, we certainly appreciate that, and we're grateful for you participating in our weekly polls. But this week's question, in lieu of the subject matter that we were having, is the following question. It said, the topic of homosexuality can no longer be ignored. Many churches have closed their eyes, hoping it would just go away. Others have inwardly convinced themselves that they shouldn't address something that is so controversial. And then there are those who have chosen hatred as a response to dealing with homosexuality. As believers, we should hate the sin, but love the sinner. And I sincerely believe that. So the question to our listeners were, do you believe that the church is effectively dealing with the topic of homosexuality in the church? The responses were, or the choices were, no, I think the church can do a much better job in this area. And the other one was, yes, I believe the church is addressing this issue properly. The poll results were overwhelming in one direction. No one thinks that the church is addressing the issue properly, and I am one of those people. I do not believe that the church is addressing the issue properly, and everyone that voted for the one that said, no, I think the church could do a much better job in this area. So I'm going to read a couple of comments, but then I want to just involve you in our conversation, a little bit of dialogue on this subject. We were talking a little bit about it off air, but I want to continue that on air as well. So we had a couple of people respond, and I'm going to read one of the responses here by Brian Jeffers, who was actually a guest on the show a couple of weeks back. But he said, generally speaking, the church doesn't deal with anything regarding sexuality effectively and consistency. The church needs to train itself on how to effectively minister to those with same-sex attractions, and shaming them isn't the answer. Loving them, walking with them, educating ourselves is the key. Most Christians ignore or speak from a place of ignorance. And he said this is a great topic. And then we had Althea Warner, who also made a statement. She said that the church should address it as it's written in the Bible, like everything else, and it's up to the person to follow not what's popular, not what's popular and what man or the law of the land expects. You don't have to mistreat people to disagree with them. However, you should only participate as it is written in the Word with no apologies. The church's job is to preach, teach, and set the example for those to follow. What judgment that is faced is up to each individual. So, I agree with both of those statements. And the one statement that I want to discuss amongst us three here right now is basically the statement of how we as a church have to do a better job of educating ourselves in order to address individuals who have chosen that as a lifestyle. I think, personally, that we have failed in a major way as it relates to that. I think there's a lot of shaming that goes on, and that's wrong. I think there's a lot of mistreatment and excessive judgment that occurs, and I think that as a result of that, as we were saying a little bit off air, there's a whole segment of the population that has been ostracized and treated in a manner that has caused them to turn away from Christ. Because it's our job, regardless of what the choices are of anybody that walks in and out of a church door or comes into our presence, to give the love of Christ. And I believe that some people have misused a couple of scriptures where they feel as though they have the right to judge a person. And that's wrong. That's not in no way, shape, or fashion what we should do. The Word is the judge. God's Word is the judge, but it's not our job to judge a person. And I think that we fail in that matter. So as a person who's walked that path and then walked back, how do you think that, and again, I don't expect you to solve the problems of the world in one statement, but how do you think the church can do a better job of addressing our brothers and sisters who have chosen the lifestyle of homosexuality without causing them to feel ostracized and condemned?
So, I mean, like with anything, we treat people the same as you would, no matter what they're dealing with. I think what you were saying, there's two polar opposites. You have churches who, both hands extended, everyone come and we celebrate and welcome everyone. We're not going to deal with it or even reprimand or say or explain, but really talk about what the Bible says, because we don't want to offend them. We don't want to make you feel unwelcome or unloved. And then we have churches who are both hands out and they're like, no, change your life and then come, or we won't have this at all, or you're a sinner, or very hateful messages, and people are obviously turned away not only from the church but from God, because that view of the way the church portrays God makes, why would I want to come to a
Exactly.
pushing me away? And I heard a pastor explain it once where both are wrong, and we should really be having one hand up and one hand out. So come, yes, come as you are. Jesus says come as you are, and that was the message that got me. And it was, I went to a service, Bethel Campus Fellowship had a Bible study at the school I went to, and many campuses around here, and I went to a service one night, and the message was come as you are. And basically I felt like Jesus was like, I'll take your burden, but it wasn't like get your life together, fix this, fix that, leave homosexuality, and then come to me. No, come as you are. And I think the church a lot of times is like, I want to fix your problems. Let's deal with the sin. Let's deal with all of these things that we can see on the outside. But really, there's usually with everyone a much deeper issue. And so it's not our job to fix people or to tell them, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. Get it right, then come and you can serve and you can be involved and we'll love you and we'll treat you like everyone else in the church. It's a matter of us showing and reflecting Christ in everything we say and do, and loving people, and then allowing that love to then convict them of that sin. Obviously not from a place of, okay, yes, we're going to embrace and celebrate your sin and come and we'll do your wedding but more of a like, we love you, this is where we stand. And I think churches need to make it clear where they stand, because a lot of people just haven't dealt with it at all. And so this is where we stand, this is what we believe, but we love you and we'd love you to join us. However, we're not going to celebrate and condone. And so then it's up to the person, okay, I know they're not hating me, but this is where they stand, so I can choose to either stay because I do want something different, or I can go somewhere else, or I can, it's up to the person. And there are people who will come because they're searching, and there are people who don't want to change at all. And I feel like the church, I'll just talk from where I came. So when I started going to church again, first day I went to church, I was terrified. I was with my best friend. We were in the car taking selfies after getting lost, going to the wrong church, sitting down in the wrong church, thinking we were in the right place. And they were like, so who invited you? We said the name of the person. We were like, who's that? Who's that? It was so awkward. So we found the right church finally, sat in the car, took selfies, #we're terrified, and then finally went in and we're like, we're going to be ostracized, we're going to be kicked out, they're going to this is terrible. We're not we walked in, we were kind of not at all knowing what to expect. And after the service, all of the youth, all of the young adults, we went in a room and they stood in a circle around us. We're about to be stoned. And every single person, one at a time, came up to us. And, hi, I'm so-and-so. This is what I struggled with. This is what God delivered me from.
Wow.
Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I dealt with pornography or whatever it was, and
Yeah.
God brought me through this. And we stood there and just wept because I'd never, I mean,
Now, this was at the right church or the wrong church?
This is at the right church.
Okay.
I mean, the wrong church
Right.
it seemed like a good church too, so it
Okay.
probably was the right church, but not for that morning.
Gotcha.
But we finally ended up at the church we were actually invited to. And I was just so blown away. Like, we went to lunch that day, and I couldn't even speak. I just sat there, and I was like, I'd never really gone to church before that, even to give Christians a chance, give the church a chance to love me, because I was just so angry. But I did not expect that. I totally was blown away at the love that was shown. It wasn't like, oh, you know, you were a lesbian and so your sin is worse than mine. No, it was
Right.
we all struggle, but you're here now, and we want to walk through this with you.
Yeah.
So get involved. Let us, let's pour into each other. Let's fellowship. Let's iron sharpens iron. Let's grow together. Let's walk
Exactly.
together. And I think that's the place of the church, is people who are coming and who are open and whose hearts God is, softening so that they can hear the truth and so that they do want to make some changes. For us to come alongside them and love them, and for us to be, like you were saying, be educated and know what it's all about,
Exactly.
and so that we can come alongside people and know, because depending on what struggles a person has, sometimes it's good to know a little bit of how to come alongside someone and encourage them and strengthen them and give, and what verses might really be beneficial specifically for that situation, or knowing who in your church has struggled with certain things, so you can then connect them with this person, and
I love that. The whole the visualization of one hand up and one hand out, it addresses it. I don't know what the pastor's name was, but that's perfect, because my thoughts are, the Bible, or the church rather, because it's not the Bible, come as you are, come to Christ as you are. But the thing is, when you come to Christ, you should not leave as you came. Right. So you have to be able to come to Him, though. So if we don't open the door in love for absolutely, positively everybody to come to Christ, then how will the conversions take place? How will the changes take place? I would love it if everybody had to wear a T-shirt with their individual sins on it every Sunday. Then you would have less judgment, because there are people who have things that they struggle with from a sinful perspective, and you would never know. You don't know that, I struggle with pornography every day, and there might be somebody sitting in church on their phone. They're so addicted that they might be watching during service. You never know that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being facetious, but you never know. They could be in the parking lot on their iPhone, because they wouldn't do that on Samsung. No, I'm playing, but they'd be doing on their iPhone, doing that, and then coming in, or somebody who the doctor has said, listen, you can't have sugar anymore. But if that pie gets baked, they eating from the middle and spreading it out to make it seem like nobody didn't eat.
Mama made that good Kool-Aid. Like,
right, but you see what I'm saying? Yeah. But there are people that struggle with feelings of pedophilia. There are people that struggle with suicidal thoughts and all these different things. If we had to wear a T-shirt that broadcasts what it was that we actually struggle with, less people would be judgmental, and church probably be empty because nobody would want to come.
Or it might be packed.
Or it could be packed with their sins on their sleeve. Could you imagine that? And I loved what they did.
Leave them there. You get a new, fresh, clean T-shirt on your way out.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But I think I'm going to adapt that. I like the fact that people actually walked up and said, "Hey, my name is Greg. I struggled with Starbucks coffee every morning. And I'm addicted to caffeine. And pleasure to meet you." That's awesome, because that's the type of transparency and the type of realness that we actually need to help heal the broken. And I truly believe that, man. But how do you feel about that? I mean, you've got.
How can I come after that?
Hey, man, it's all about perspective. Yeah. So some people react in hatred. Some people act like it's not there. And then some people are just refuse to deal with it because they feel like it's too controversial, or maybe it'll go away one day. What is your perspective on that?
I believe when we aren't handling it properly, come as you are, as we've been saying, but you gotta come from it with a place of real love, and the only love we can give is the love that God called us to give.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then that's when we have that level, and I think we all struggle with it. Even now, we all struggle with, we struggle with saying that, we're supposed to say that sin is sin. So no matter what your sin is, like you said, a pedophile or somebody who is a drunkard, to us that's different.
Yeah.
But to us it's supposed to be the same. So
we categorize.
Yeah. So it's like, well, no, your sin is worse. So that's why, especially like with homosexuality, it's just like get condemned to hell. They took one verse and forgot about
the
all
abomination
the
verse. This is the verse about the abomination.
Yeah, and it's like there's a whole bunch of It's about, to me, it's about your lifestyle, living a lifestyle of love and correction when it comes to needing to be corrected. I gave an analogy a couple of weeks ago on the show about how we handle people that get abortions.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen pictures of Christians standing outside abortion clinics condemning the women to hell. Imagine how different it would be if we stood out there and hugged them and embraced them and said, I don't know why you're here, I don't agree with you, but I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to love on you. And that's the kind of love that we need for anything, but especially since we're talking about this, come into church. That's fine. I'm going to love you. I'm going to pray for you.
Yeah.
We're going to figure this out together. And I think, to your point, that a lot of people just don't know how to handle it. They think that
it's an educational issue.
They think that just praying is just the thing that's going to fix it.
Just put water on it.
We going to put them in a circle and speak in tongues, and that's just going
not going to fix it.
that's just going to deliver them right then and there. No, it's a process. Just like anything. If you've been drinking for 20 years.
Well, if you stop drinking right away, you're going to have the shakes, you're going to go through withdrawal. It's a bunch of things that's going to happen to you if you just stop drinking.
Right, so you got to look at the same thing. It's just not going to stop overnight. It's a process that the
if you
person
go from
has
10
to
drinks to
develop.
5, you're making progress.
And oftentimes, God, He is, He's God, He's deliverer, that He can do anything. And I know a lot of people in testimonies, and for me, with drinking and smoking and a lot of other things that I was involved with, it was like when I came to Christ and I got prayed over and just like I was like, God, I surrender this. It was like an instantaneous thing.
Right.
But for a lot of things and a lot of people and a lot of struggles, it's not. It doesn't work out that way because it's like through the process of allowing Him to walk you through it, you grow and you learn. Your character is built, and He requires us to walk through some of those very difficult seasons because we have to learn, and it makes us stronger so that we can then go and help someone else through the same process.
Exactly.
And
there was one. I'm sorry. There was one other thing that you said that I thought was paramount during the course of your conversation, Gabby, and that was that the cure for homosexuality is not heterosexuality. Because some people will say, well, if you just get a man, or if you just get a woman, everything will be fine. No, that's not the answer. The answer is identifying and learning who you are in Christ first, and then working from there. So that was key. And because I've heard that so many times. And it's something that's stated out of ignorance, I really believe, but it's something that needed to be said. So I definitely appreciate that statement.
Oh no, go ahead. I forgot my phrase. Okay.
Oh, it's no problem. It's no problem. So, but for those just joining us, we were just talking about the ACS question of the week. So we're going to take another break, just a quick break here, and something that you may not know, and if you've gone on to GabrielleRehmeyer.org, you would know. That our guest is also a musician, so she's going to share a musical piece when we return. So stay tuned, stay locked to WXSL Street Legal Radio, www.streetlegalradio.com. We'll be right back after the break. She's also a musician and a poet, so we're going to, at this time, turn things over to her. She's going to share with us some talent from the heart that God has laid on her heart to share with us today.
So a little background. Last night when I was thinking about which song, I realized, so there's one song that I wrote a few months before I came back to Christ, and it was, like I was saying earlier, that every time it seemed I was trying to write, which is why I didn't usually try to play my guitar and write, it would always be a worship song or a song that somehow, some way had to do with God. And this is one that was written a few months before I came back to Christ, and then the other one is called Ransomed Heart, and that's one that was written after coming back to Christ. Me and my best friend actually wrote it one day, sitting outside reflecting on everything God had been doing in our lives. So, yeah, I'm a little nervous. Bear with me.
Stay tuned, stay locked to WXSL Street Legal Radio. This is the After Church Show with Greg and Friends. We'll be just back. We'll be back. Welcome back to the After Church Show with Greg and Friends. You're live in the studio. WXXL Street Legal Radio. That's www.streetlegalradio.com. You can also check us out on our website. That's theafterchurchshow.com. So we have been blessed the last hour or so with our special guest. And Gabby, we just want to thank you for stopping in and sharing all that God has laid on your heart. I appreciate your testimony. I appreciate your transparency, your honesty, because it's needed. This is a very, unfortunately, taboo and touchy subject in the body of Christ, and everybody sometimes they deal with it with hands, with kid gloves, and they tiptoe around it, and they never want to really talk about it. And the boldness with which you spoke, and the authority that God has given you to speak boldly in this area, I greatly appreciate it. And the rest of my squad, we really appreciate you coming down and sharing with us something so personal, because it is my belief that God is going to take the things that you're saying and utilize those words in the lives of others. We never know who we can help until we make an effort to help. And I'm just grateful that you decided to come spend a portion of your afternoon with us down here at the After Church Show. So thank you very much, Chris.
Yes, thank you. I was doing two different things at once on the page, so thank you for sharing your story, sharing your music. It's definitely been a blessing, and some things that you said kind of resonated with me, so we definitely appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Definitely, yeah, we had fun.
Yeah. So I did want to there's one thing before we get into how people can contact you and all of your information, but knowing where you've come from, and knowing the journey that you've taken as a woman of Christ, I want you to take just a moment or two, if you would, and speak to someone who may be struggling where you struggle. Speak to someone who may have had the same questions about their identity that you had, and just encourage them in whatever way you see fit.
So firstly, I realize that there may be some people watching, listening, who have no intent or don't really even know Christ, or don't have any intention of changing or seeing anything wrong with your lifestyle or where you're at. So my first message would be to the category of person, just try to just pursue Jesus, and don't think about it as we're sitting here saying homosexuality is wrong and change, come to Christ, turn away from it. But the first thing I would say to someone is just Jesus. Like Jesus, pursue his love, let him experience the love of Christ, and then see what he wants to do with you and in your life. To those of you who maybe find yourself in a similar situation to where I was, where I've been, where I am, my encouragement would be that, for years I prayed, and I didn't tell anyone this because I didn't want anyone to know I was praying or hoping this, because then they would know I wasn't truly 100% fully at peace with who I was. But I prayed, and I even wrote in my journal in the first few years. I was like, God, I want to know. I know I can't stay here forever. I'm not sure how I'm going to come out of this, or if ever I don't feel like it's possible. But I want to know that it's possible. I want to know that there's someone who's come out. I want to show me somebody. And I remember when a few years ago I went. One of my sisters was here, and in Pennsylvania, and we went to a women's conference. I went with her because she was having a hard time adjusting, and I was going more so to spend time with her because I knew she'd want to go for some church conference. And she introduced me at this conference. God, it was one of those times when he tugged on my heart. I wasn't ready, but he tugged on my heart. And she introduced me to Jackie Hill Perry. And I heard Jackie Hill's testimony, and I was like, oh no, it's possible. Her life has changed. God, you did it. Oh no, I don't have it. I can't, and it was it hit me in that moment where it was I'm not ready now, but I know I can't keep fighting it because I know there's more. So my encouragement would be that you take this and my story and other people's story who have come out, because there are a lot of people who have come out. And I'm so thankful that there have been people who have spoken to my life, and I've also come out of the lifestyle and allow God to use their transparency and sharing their story of what He's done in their lives to encourage me and give me hope. And I pray that this will be hope to you, to know that it's not easy. And in today's world where you're probably very much so encouraged and that lifestyle is very much so celebrated, it's easy to just be like, oh, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, and to go and get affirmation from so many people, even people in the church. But I want you to really pray and ask God what He thinks. What is His view on the matter? Start seeking for yourself. What God, who do you say that I am? Who am I to you? How did you create me? What do you want to do with me? And is my life and my lifestyle, where I'm at, hindering what you want to do and the plans that you have for my life? And then if you're struggling, go to someone in church that you trust, a mentor, someone that you know you can open up to. He's going to give my information. If you need to reach out, get the book, read it, reach out to me. I'd love to pray with you, encourage you. Just know it's possible. He loves you so much. And clearly there is huge plan for your life, because if the enemy will try to take your identity and make it so difficult for you to figure out who you are and who you're meant to be in that struggle, it's like he's paralyzed you, but God doesn't want you to be paralyzed. He has a plan. He wants to take you from that place and to heal your heart so that you can be used and to heal other people's hearts. So I would just encourage you to not ignore it, to just start seeking Him and to reach out for help. And don't be afraid to be transparent and vulnerable, because there's so much strength in being vulnerable and being open with where you're at. So, but make sure you're being vulnerable and open to the right people. Someone you trust and a mentor who you know will just stand by you and pray for you. And if they don't know what to do or exactly how, they could at least help you find someone who can walk you through this.
Amen. Thank you so much, Gabby. We appreciate it. So if you want to get in contact with Gabby, go to her website. She has a website that you can log into even right now. Check her out. It's Gabrielle Rehmeyer. That's GabrielleRehmee.org. Again, that's GabrielleRehmeyer.org. And also, the book that we've been referring to, Ransomed Heart, Coming Out of Homosexuality and Into the Father's Arms, can be ordered via the website of her publisher, and the publisher is firstlovemedia.com. It's www.firstlovemedia.com. It's also available on Amazon, so you can go in there as well. So let's support her. Let's put our love behind her, but also let's put our funds behind her as well. She's written a book, and we certainly want to support her in this venture to ensure that the word gets out there. This has been a very powerful couple of hours filled with a lot of good information. It's one for all of us to grow from. And I encourage you to get her book, whether you're dealing with homosexuality yourself, whether you have a family member who is dealing, whether it's something that you need to educate yourself on more so that you know how to be effective in dealing with others through love. As a church, I encourage you to get this book, because it's a very bold declaration about the love of Christ. And at the end of it all, at the end of everything, it's about our identity in Christ, and that's what she speaks about. And I encourage you to go out and support her. So again, we'll make her information available on our Facebook page, on the After Church Radio Show page, and we'll also put it on our fan page as well. So again, she can be reached though on GabrielleRehmeyer.org, and you can get her book via Amazon and the other website, firstlovemedia.com. So we thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm going to now give my final thought before we get off the air, because I believe we had a good time, man. Would you think so?
Oh yeah, we definitely had a good time.
Yeah, this has been a great show, and I'm grateful for all that God does. But here's my final thought. God is incredible, and the work of God's hand is very amazing. And sometimes you have to stop and take a moment to truly appreciate all that He's done. There's this old adage that states, you should always take the time to stop and smell the roses. And while I was on vacation last week, I actually had the opportunity to one morning I was just sitting on the beach, and I was reflecting, and a marveled at how beautiful it was. While I sat there on the beach, you know, the skyline was beautiful. The way the sun was breaking through the clouds was beautiful. The sound of the ocean crashing against the shore, it was beautiful. It was peaceful. All the sounds of nature were so soothing. And I just sat there early that morning in awe of how great God actually is, and how it was by His spoken word that He created everything that I had the pleasure of seeing. And I really became filled with gratitude in that moment. The Bible states in Psalms 19:1 that the heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of His hands. So the ACS challenge for this week is very simple. We all have busy lives. We all have things that keep us encumbered, and you know, there's plenty to keep us busy throughout the course of the week. But my challenge to you this week is, no matter how hectic your life is, and no matter how busy you get this week, I want you to take a moment to stop and smell the roses, in order to appreciate all that God has done. This is a beautiful, beautiful creation. God has created the earth. He's created the heavens, the skies. Everything around us is a result of His spoken word and His creative mind. So don't get too busy to the point where you can't appreciate the beauty that surrounds you. And that's the ACS challenge of the week. This has been the After Church Show. I've been GB. He's been Massey. We've had a wonderful time. We appreciate you. We love you guys. We will see you next week at the same time in the same place. Be blessed on your journey.